Welcome to the Uncommon Expose, where I want to change your life by sharing someone else's. If you've got an open mind, then please join me and my guests as we share their incredible, inspiring, true stories. Trigger warning. This episode discusses parental alienation, mental illness, and legal proceedings. If you find any of these things triggering, please do not listen and seek support where necessary. Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I'm really honoured to share your story because I know that this is something that is, it's hard. So I'll get you to introduce yourself and what your story is about, and then we'll just get started.
Well, my name is Erena, and I am a mum to 3 kids. And my story is really about being alienated from my youngest daughter and how I found peace around our physical separation and challenges along the way.
It's a topic that happens a lot more. Your experience is something that probably comes up for a lot more people than we realise, and it definitely would have a lot of taboo and stigma around it. So you being willing to share this today, I am positive is going to open people's eyes, even if they don't have experience with it, or it's going to make at least one woman out there feel more comfortable with their journey.
I found that myself as I've been journeying and travelling through quite traumatic experiences, that I felt quite isolated in it. As I was sharing before, a lot of mothers would sneak into my DMs when I started to share more about what was happening in my personal life, and the absolute heartbreak that comes from not being able to have your version of being a mother play out in your reality, in your life.
So I guess when did this all kind of start for you, and how long has it been since you've seen your daughter?
It's been about, I last saw my daughter in October, and that was very brief. I saw her for just a little while, and December, January, February, March, April, May. So that is 7 months now that I have not seen my youngest daughter, and every day my heart breaks open a little bit more. Just with a realization that the relationship that I thought that I would have with my daughter is very, very different. I often refer to myself, and this might seem really strange, as a part-time mother. And I feel like a lot of guilt and a lot of shame about not having my children all together in my life all the time. And it's been very challenging to move through, very disturbing and different emotions as I've been separated from her. This really came about from over a year ago now, over a year and a half, actually longer, almost 2 years ago now, when we had that really split in our family, is what I call it. And this really occurred when my eldest was having some challenges moving from house to house, and she wanted to have more time with me.
So do all 3 of your children share the same father?
No. So my eldest and my youngest are with my ex-husband, and my middle child is my stepson.
Okay.
So I have grouped them all together.
Yeah, that's amazing. They are all your children, but
I
was wondering what the dynamic was how they were separated emotionally, biologically. Yeah. So please continue.
So back over a couple of years ago now, my eldest daughter wanted to spend more time with me, and that caused a lot of friction and challenges with everybody, with my youngest, with me, with my eldest, and with their dad. And after I instigated a mediation process to have a bit of a chat about the arrangements for care, it went downhill quite quickly from there. So the father would not come to the mediation process. So that kind of ruined any chances, I feel like saying, of coming to some kind of arrangement in a peaceful way. And my youngest daughter started to become quite angry toward me, I would say. She didn't really want to spend as much time with me as usual. And at that time I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, like she's a teenager as well. Like they're going through their emotions, and maybe she does need a little bit more space from me. How can I help her? Things are obviously changing in our family. But she started to spend more time with her dad. And I was like, okay, you know, I wanted to be that like person that gave people space. It's like what I've built my life around is letting people make choices.
And also be supportive of a relationship between a father and a daughter.
Yeah, and that was always important. You know, like it's not just me as a parent. There are two parents. But what was happening behind the scenes was my daughter was starting to be more influenced by viewpoints about me that just weren't true. So she would say things like, you don't care about me, you're not listening to me, like really quite out of the ordinary. So I went from my daughter, you know, writing me love letters almost, like writing me love notes. I went from my daughter writing me love notes to her basically saying that she didn't want anything to do with me. There was a stage there where she said that she hated me. And this was very sudden, and it was very out of character for my youngest daughter, who I've always had a very close bond with. And there was one particular incident in particular when my eldest daughter was crying on the phone. She was on the phone and she brought the phone into me and she said, my dad's on the phone, he wants to speak with you. Una was with, my youngest daughter was with her dad. And so she put it on speakerphone, and basically the dad said that he was going to take my youngest daughter and take her to a different country, and they were going to live there permanently.
Is he a citizen of that country? Or,
yes. So that shock raced through my body so quickly, and I've never felt that sense of, you know, actually being really afraid and out of control. Like everything felt out of my control. And I remember I was like, I can't let this happen. Like what am I going to do? How am I going to stop this? And my my daughter was crying, I was crying. I actually asked to speak with my youngest daughter on the phone, and I remember that I was talking about how much I cared and I loved her and I wanted to have a relationship with her, and it just almost felt like I was speaking into a wall. And I didn't know that much about like parental alienation. I knew nothing pretty much about parental alienation, which is why I feel like this story needs to be heard.
Do you think your ex was saying he was going to take her out of country to get a response from you, or because that was what he wanted to do?
I think there were other factors that were happening for him in his personal life.
Okay, yeah.
And
so he was going to follow through?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So something that I've never really understood is basically by saying that it was like abandoning my eldest daughter, like just being like, I'm okay with leaving you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know has ripped my daughter, my eldest daughter in particular. She's been quite ripped apart by that.
Because he was going to leave her to move back to the other country. Yeah.
And no consideration for her. And my daughters had a very close relationship. They had such a beautiful connection. You know, of course they fought, they were siblings, but underneath all of that, they had a deep love for one another. They spent a lot of time together. They communicated well together, and slowly but surely that's really changed quite significantly. But yeah, so after that I went and I got a lot of adrenaline rush. And I was on the phone with every single legal service that I could like possibly get in touch with that would have an appointment. I knew that I had to act very quickly, and I stayed up night and day to figure out what I could do. And in a week I had put together a whole like case to go to court, everything. You know, I obviously have I didn't have the opportunity to actually go and see a physical lawyer, because they were like, you need to book in a time, you need to book an appointment, you need to have a consultation. I was like, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't want my daughter to leave the country. What can I do? So I found out more about putting my daughter on the airport watch list. And you had to have a compelling reason why. Fortunately, I had already actually called the police, because I was like, how can this happen? This can't happen. Like, I've got parenting orders already in place. So they had already visited me. I had already, I was in freak out mode. I was in freak out mode.
I think that's a natural response to what it sounds like you're going through. I feel like I would be the same.
So I was in freak out mode, and I was just calling everybody up, and that got submitted very quickly, and she wasn't able to leave the country anytime soon, because they approved that, you know, there was a risk there for her being basically abducted. But I don't think that I went out of the traumatic shock of that, even though it was in place and, you know, she had to stay in the country pretty much. I didn't feel as though I could access some of those emotions, because I felt super numb. I felt really stuck. I felt really frozen, and you know, I had to continue on in my professional life, which included showing up every day and generating that ability to provide for my family. while my heart was breaking, while I woke up every morning crying, when I was like, I don't know if I'm a mother anymore. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was a mother to my eldest, but I wanted all of my children.
They all have a piece of your heart, don't they?
Yeah, so that was really hard. I went into a lot of like really ugly emotions. I felt really challenged to get up. Just need a moment.
Some tissues.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You just take as long as you need.
Thank you. So yeah, it felt very hard to be engaged with the world again. It felt as though I was moving through something that nobody else really understood. So I started to learn a lot more about alienation, and what occurred in systematically removing my youngest daughter from my life and how that was impacting everybody. And I did go through a very, very selfish stage as well, where everything was about like how this was impacting me.
Yeah.
And that was not very helpful, but I think it was also very necessary.
Survival.
It was. It definitely was.
And I can imagine, because it's something that we don't talk about, and you've just said that you couldn't really talk to anyone about it. That brings shame and fear of judgment, which makes all of those emotions far more compounding. And then you just spiral because there's nowhere for those emotions to go.
Yeah, and I want to say that I felt like I was two different people.
Yeah.
Like I was a person that was strong, and actually I want to rephrase that. I am a person that is strong. I've always been considered a rock. I've always been, like I feel like the stable one in my family. And it was just such a different way to touch into different ways of being soft, of being vulnerable, of being a complete, are we allowed to swear? A complete fucking mess. Tear-strained moments, very lost, very confused, and, a lot of crying in the shower, and then using a lot of tools to pick myself up and keep going. But things happen like trying to take my daughter away to a different country, removing her from the school system, removing any way for her to access my home, and also limiting the way that she could communicate with her sister, that she could spend time with her sister.
So could he just remove her from the school system without your permission? How does that work?
That is an interesting question.
Yeah.
So basically my youngest daughter was going to see a guidance counsellor. Both of my children were getting support because obviously there was a lot happening in our family life that was impacting, their ability to come even to the school grounds.
Yeah.
And my youngest daughter in particular was sharing lots of things with her guidance counsellor. I'm not privy to that, but there was challenges in her social circle with there was challenges around the people that she was hanging around with that were influencing her in very destructive behaviours. There were indications and alerts around, self-harming, very unhealthy ways of coping with different stresses in life. And I did send quite a few messages being like, I'm a bit worried.
To the school?
To their dad.
Okay, yeah.
And that, I wanted her to get more support or to have that conversation and get that out in the open. And basically they set up a meeting with the school, and because she had had a lot of truancy, the dad and the school came to an agreement that she would move on, and that she would access homeschooling or distance learning. I didn't find that out till around a week later, that my daughter just wasn't at the school anymore. It wasn't that she wasn't just at the school, but that was actually a place where my two daughters went to the same school. So it was an opportunity for them to connect together. And that was really upsetting. I think my eldest daughter even said to me that her dad's taking her sister away from her. And it was kind of confirmed again and again in all of these different ways. And so when I contacted the school and I explained to them about, moving in the court system, sorting out child arrangements, that we had parental orders in place around their education, major educational decisions, they basically denied any wrongdoing. Yeah. So they were really basically saying that they feel as though there was a consultation process, that they had been in connection with the father, that my youngest daughter was residing with him, and that in their opinion, that there had been an agreement, basically. And I was like, well, there hasn't. I'm telling you right now. That really broke me. More and more I felt disempowered. I felt more and more out of control. And that I didn't have a say in what was happening in my youngest daughter's life. There's that sense of not having physical connection, but then just slowly being eliminated was really hard. And to have an institution that also was kind of supporting this alienation and stopping that connection between my daughters, having them not be able to spend time together or see each other every day was, it felt like I was slowly being discarded. I felt very abandoned also by my youngest daughter, and that's something that feels really embarrassing to say, but I felt very abandoned. I felt very like I've tried to give you everything, and that sounds really silly, but
I don't think so. The emotions that children can withdraw from us don't always make rational sense, but they're still valid and they're still felt.
So it was a really ugly time, and then going through the court system, and I feel as though when I went through the family court system as well, And when I went to go and finally got an appointment with a lawyer that would talk to me, they weren't interested in the process. They only wanted to be involved when there was like a judge, and at that time there was the judicial register that we were in front of. So they just kind of, they're kind of like the people that decide which direction the matter's going to go in.
Okay.
And it made a lot of sense as well. Like, I did have an informed choice around that because of, the outlay of finances, the probability, like all of the things. Like, they were very open about it. So they actually said to me that, you are very well spoken, that you do have that capacity. Like, they said basically the case that you put together in a week cost like $3,000.
Wow.
So, and I was like, well, I did that on adrenaline.
Yeah. I can do that again.
It's not my day job.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to weigh up a lot of factors, and I feel like I didn't have, because I felt really stuck in this really dark and ugly place, that financially I was impacted by that, because I was the provider and, in my own business. So that was really highlighted. Like, was I going to be able to, rise above this or with it, or, however you want to say. But, I just find that the more that I learnt about the signs around parental alienation, I just kept ticking all of the boxes. And I was like, when they move from having a loving connection to spitting out hatred and using words that you've never heard from them, like the way that I was removed in all of these different areas of her life, the way that she started to blame me for anything that happened that was not great. There was like this strange sense that I was to blame for why she couldn't leave the country as well. That I was to blame for why she couldn't leave the school system with ease. And I was like, I don't even know what reality this is, because it sounds like ludicrous. If I told anybody else this, they'd be like, what?
And also, she's still a child.
She's a child.
And you're the parent. You're well within your rights to make it difficult for her. As long as, you're making a rational decision that's supported by a thought out process. Like, she can have a say, but at the end of the day, ultimately, like, you're the parent.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say that sounds amazing, but I didn't really feel like a parent.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't feel like a parent. And just the dynamics, like, I felt very angry towards my daughter. I felt betrayed as well. Like, like almost like that pitting against one another was really highlighted. And I was like, I don't want to play that game. I've never wanted, I had, from when my daughter was 2 is when we started to move through, parental orders and care arrangements, and I've never wanted to isolate them away from having a relationship with either parent. Yeah. I've always wanted them to have connection with both of us, because I wanted them to experience that. I didn't want them to feel as though they couldn't receive love from both of us. I mean, I grew up in a environment that had a lot of, walked around on eggshells a lot. I grew up a lot of aggression, a lot of violence, a lot of chaos, and I wanted my children to receive love. Whether that was from me or from others. Like, I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a barrier to that. But yeah, so it has been 7 months since I have seen my daughter. And the court system was extremely challenging. When I sat through people that were asking me questions about me as a mother, about my relationship with my children, there was so much judgment because I didn't cry enough. I feel like I didn't cry enough. I know that sounds really strange, but I feel like I wanted to be a strong motherly presence, and I feel like that worked against me.
Yeah, okay.
Because I wasn't breaking down. I wasn't I wasn't on the I didn't sound distressed. I didn't look distressed.
Yeah.
I came in there like I need to be able to communicate. I need to be able to find an avenue so that I could open up a doorway for my daughter to come back into my life, because that's, at the end of the day, that's all I really wanted. That's all I always wanted, was for my children to be with me. But I think that's like the turning point as well, you know, when for me in particular, like I have a lot of connection with my soul, with my spirituality, and I feel like that's when I started to really like move out of that space of crying every morning, feeling really frozen and stuck, feeling as though I was numbed out from the world. I feel as though that was it opened me into a deeper understanding of being a spiritual being in a human body. Because if I truly believed that we have our unique spark of source or universe or God, you know, then is it okay for that to be wherever? So when I started to realize that I had been trying to hold on to my daughter and our relationship in a certain way, like I wanted her to be physically in my presence, I wanted her to listen to me, I wanted her to, you know, like have this, I wanted to have the banter and the to and fro, and I wanted to be able to see her every day, and I wanted to ensure that I could do this, and when I came to more of a realization that was actually keeping me stuck, it was keeping me in a pattern of feeling as though I was hard done by, as though, you know, I was a real victim, and there is truth in that. Like I have been a victim, and I'm okay with that. But what do I do with that? You know, like I don't want to stay there. And I felt myself spiraling down into that sense of I don't know who I am anymore. And there's a lot of power in that. When you completely release that control of the identity that I had constructed about motherhood, about me being a mother, when I really let that go, and I was like, maybe I'm not a great mother, maybe I'm a crap mother, maybe I'm a toxic mother, maybe I'm a shitty mother, maybe I'm just all of the yuckiest things in the world about being a mother, maybe I am. And maybe I'm also an incredible mother, maybe I'm a brave mother, maybe I'm a strong mother, maybe I'm a weak mother. Like maybe if I could explore all the ways that I can be a mother and just be okay with all of it,
that's when I really started to realise if I could just surrender into what was happening more and more and more, whether that meant having my daughter physically with me or not, that would be the way that I could move through this. And it's really from that moment of feeling like completely out of control and just being okay with absolutely not feeling loved at all, that I found that light again of just being like, I'm actually okay. I'm okay. And my daughter is actually okay. And even though the reality that I had pictured for us, that I had dreamed about, that I had built, may not be happening right now, doesn't mean that that's not a reality that can happen in the future. So I need to prepare again. And the way to prepare is coming back to the very basics of actually I am a spiritual being in a human body. And that she is a spiritual being in a human body, and that she has her choices, and that she has her own life and another path. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to reconnect in the future. It just means it's different to what I imagined. It's different to all of the hopes and the dreams that I had. And it was really hard to come to that place. Because you stop betraying yourself as a mother that's not capable, that's been abused, that's been treated in a certain way. You feel guilty because you're actually starting to live again.
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of people gravitating towards me when I was in that space of despair, when I was sharing more about the heartbreak. And I had very few people that were with me when I started to really live again. As a mother that didn't have that physical connection with my daughter, with my youngest daughter, that I started to live with this understanding that I would carry that grief with me, and that I just had to move with it, that nothing would take that away. And as I started to move with that grief, and my life started to change, and my connection with my eldest became stronger, because we started to share about everything that was happening. And I started to open up more. My heart started to open up more to the experience of life as it is, rather than what I imagined it to be. And I started to form more intimate connections with all of my loved ones, with my partner, with my family, and more so with myself. Yeah.
So when you went through the court process, was the findings that the father had sole custody? How did it kind of get to the point where, I would say, you haven't seen her for 7 months. She's obviously living with him. You've said that he's limited her connection, access to phones and things. Was that all through the court order, or was that something that you just have felt was the right place to be for her and where she needs to be?
I think what was really highlighted in the court, and this is something that is very relevant for parents that are going through alienation, is that the courts don't recognise that.
in the process that they have. So they have a process where the children have access to an independent review assessment, and then from that assessment they will come to different findings, and they'll create a child report, and then that report will be shared. And that's why I was talking about how I didn't cry enough. I wasn't in despair enough. I didn't show enough distress. And it didn't look like I was in a space of heartache and despair, and the things that were reflected in that report almost came across like I didn't really care. Just that's the kind of sense that I had, or I didn't care enough about what my daughter wanted, what my youngest daughter wanted. And I was like, I don't feel like the court understood that my child moved from being loving to hateful. And that wasn't because of anything other than this parental alienation that we're going through. And I was like, I don't see how that's not reflected. I said, we're wanting to get her viewpoint, but she's been heavily isolated from anyone outside of the other party. She has no friendship groups. She has no teachers around her. She has no connection with her eldest daughter, minimal when it was happening. She has no discussion with me. So we're wanting to get a viewpoint from a child that doesn't have any influences other than the other parent. And that was what I mean about being removed and being like we were both alienated.
You sound like you're being quite objective, and these are the facts, these are the influences, this is the end result, whereas they wanted more of your subjective emotions.
So there was a couple of things that came up with my youngest daughter and the child representative. I can't remember the name of them, apologies, but and she actually brought me into the room to discuss it, and I felt very numb. And when she was talking to me, I almost was like, I felt like frozen. And I didn't have any, and this is obviously, I know it's quite a common trauma response to not be able to access your words, and it's something that I've moved through quite significantly through my whole life. And that
so you almost couldn't advocate for yourself.
I felt like I couldn't advocate and talk to them about what was happening, and everything was being felt inside of me. And I was like, I'm just so overwhelmed with this whole process. It's so stressful. Of course. And they were like, oh, did you know about, I don't want to share that information because that's my youngest daughter's information, but did you know about this about her? And I said, parts of it, but not everything. And then they were like, oh, well, what do you think about it? And I said, I don't know. I just said, it's okay. And I don't feel like I had the response that they were looking for. So that kind of highlighted to them that I wasn't listening to her, or I didn't think that her perspectives mattered, or that her identity mattered, or things like that. I'd never said those words. I was just like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do.
I guess you probably also had an expectation that they would have an expectation. You weren't quite sure what their expectations would be, so you don't want to say the wrong thing and change their opinion, so you say nothing, which again sways their opinion. I was just like, I also wasn't prepared because they had told me, and this, I suppose that's just the things, like I was saying before, when I go for a walk, I put on my walking gear. When I go to business, I put on my
my business clothes. Like the context and the structure of that matters for me, because I'm setting myself up and preparing. But I wasn't prepared to come in after they had spoken to my children. So they didn't tell me that was like part of it. And so because that was a change as well, that it was unexpected, I didn't cope well with that. So I didn't prepare, I didn't feel set up, I was thinking about all of these other things. So I didn't feel as though I had the capacity to like communicate properly, because I'd already, like, I'd set myself up emotionally to be like at this point. And then I was like, I've got my eldest daughter that I need to travel home in the car with after this, so I need to keep my shit together. Keep my shit together. But yeah, there were things in that report that captured an alienated child's perspective. And a lot of that was around not wanting to spend more time at our house. So I had to really release the idea that I was going to get a certain amount of time. My children were getting older. I wanted it to be okay for my eldest daughter to have access to both houses. And we came to, a loose like structure around access and shared time, mostly because of that report, I would say. When I looked at that report, I got a lawyer to support me in the consultation process around the probability of outcomes, and they did not look good for me. They also made it very clear that if I was to move forward into moving toward the judge, that my children would have to have more, I want to say interrogation, but like they would have to see more representatives, experts, have more assessments. They would be scrutinised. They would have to go through all of those things again and again and again. And I didn't know if that was fair. Like, do they want to be questioned about their mother, about their father, about their capacity to have a relationship with either of them? Like, it just felt to me, if I did that, would that mean that I kept pulling them back into it, pulling them back in? Like, would it be traumatizing for them? So there was a lot of factors to weigh up, because when I first went into it, I was like, I'm the mother and I need to have it this way. But then when you start to unravel and look at, okay, well, from now, if I made this decision, what would actually happen? Would this bring my youngest daughter back into my life? Would this actually make her more resentful toward me, which is going against what my main objective is, which is to have connection with her in the physical. So it wasn't a process that is supportive to any parent, not just me, but to the other side as well. So it was a tough decision, but it's one that I live with. So basically the parental orders say that they can have access times in this day, but at the end of the day they have a choice. That's how we came to a close in family court.
And does your eldest daughter go between houses? I know that you said that you've got a close bond with her now.
So my eldest daughter, she was going over to the other house And it broke down. She would say to me, I want to go because I want to see my sister. But the ways that she felt she was being treated differently, she felt quite ostracized. And she's very perceptive. She picks up on things very quickly. She would come home quite often crying and very upset and very angry. She would have a lot of screaming matches on the phone in between visits. She wasn't very happy. She really did feel as though her younger sister was kind of used as a weapon to make her do things, like to make her go there. So she had a bit of a discussion with me. They don't really have a lot of contact. She doesn't stay over there. That's been going on probably since the beginning of the year, I'd say. So she has not seen her sister for quite a long time too.
Does that feel validating for you a little bit, to know that you do have a good relationship with your daughter, so that the relationship breakdown, I think as mothers we often will internalize the guilt and blame ourselves for everything, and I don't know if you did this, but you said that you searched through, am I a terrible mother, am I this, am I that? When you can hear that you have this connection with your mother, it is like, okay, I wasn't wholeheartedly at fault with this. There are multiple aspects because I can form a good relationship here. Does that make sense? Or do you just know that different people, different circumstances?
It's a tricky question.
You don't have to answer.
No, it's okay. I just want to answer truthfully. I think I just feel sad. Mostly. Because I have a lot of opportunities to have a really loving, nourishing relationship with my eldest daughter. Like I can be present with her. I can communicate with her. I have, the ability for her to be like, get out of my face, or or I just need you to listen to me, or I have opportunities for her to be angry with me, or be upset, or love on me, or all of the juicy ways we have intimate relationships, where I don't have that ability with my youngest daughter. That's been taken away from me. That's been taken away from her. So it's very different.
That makes sense.
It's parental alienation to a T. Is that you don't have access to have a relationship.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your vulnerability through sharing that journey. I always feel when people get emotional, it is a blessing, because you just know that they're being genuine. This isn't a pre-recorded interview with questions rapid fire. This is a woman sharing their journey, sharing their lived experience to help someone else. So I'm really grateful to you for sharing that with me. The final thing that I've started asking all of my guests is if there's a woman out there who's going through what you have been through, or even advice for younger you, what's something that you would like to share? What's the lesson that you feel is most paramount to move forward?
First, a practical one. I spent a lot of time not avoiding my feelings because I thought that I had to be strong to get through family court and to get through all the things, and that was not helpful in any sense. The practical way to that I would suggest for anyone that's going through alienation and separation from their children is to really find a safe person that you can share that with, that is not going to allow you to step back into the mother role, but really be vulnerable about all of the other activations that come about from being in that situation. Like at a lot of times I felt like a child myself, and I think I just needed someone to hold me and let me cry. So
be a safe space.
Be a safe space. Definitely be a safe space. And whether that's through a loved one, or if you don't feel like you have a loved one, pets are amazing, and also obviously psychologists and coaches that focus on accessing the full spectrum of emotions.
I think, and you might not agree with this, but there are government supports beyond Blue, the helpline that anyone can call anonymously to just share where they're at.
Also, women's legal services, they were incredible. If you ever have anything that comes up that you think is going to, go into the court system, call them. They are amazing. DV Connect as well. They are incredible at pointing you in the right direction, even if you don't know. I remember when I didn't know and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Having those resources and someone that deals with women that are in like heightened emotional states and may not even make any sense, and just bringing them all the way back down and being like, this is the next steps. I feel like that is, never feel as though you can't do anything. There's always someone that you can call, whether that's through state agencies, whether that's through online communities. There's always someone that you can connect with on a practical sense. For the younger version of me, which was 2 years ago, I would encourage her to come back to her sense of self and meditation and conversations with her higher self, to not feel as though the mother was the only way that she could live, and to remember her connection with something far greater than her, something far greater than her experience, something far greater than this moment in time.
That's really beautiful. I love that there was something practical, but also something for the higher planes. So thank you for that. That was amazing. Thank you for your time and sharing your journey.
Thank you.